Hi everyone. So let's look at how we can apply the concept of loops, okay, to perform the sum and average of n numbers. All right. So you can fix n, okay, which is the loop count to any number, maybe 5 or 10, doesn't matter, because it will all be in a loop. All right. So how do we want the output to look like? All right. So for example, we want, okay, so I'm going to put the output over here. Okay, so we can ask the user enter a number, okay, and the user will provide some number, okay, let's say 10. All right, then we go again. Okay, so I mean, for simplicity's sake, we can just run the loop for maybe 2 times or 3 times, okay, so maybe enter 20, enter number 30. Okay, so let's just say the loop runs for 3 times. After I get the 3 numbers, I must be able to compute the sum and the average as well. So I'll print out the sum, okay, of the 3 numbers plus the average. Okay, and of course, like I said, this is a loop that can run for n times. So once we write this as a loop, okay, the value n can be 3, 5, 100, 1000, doesn't matter. Okay, so the idea is that in order to compute the sum, I must have a variable, okay, I can call it sum, and the initial value must be 0. Okay, the initial value must be 0. So every time I add a new value, I will add it to whatever that sum already has. So if let's say my first input is 10, I will say sum plus 10, okay, equals to 10, and I'll put this back here. So it will become 10. Alright, so if the next input is, let's say, 20, then it will be 10 plus 20, which will be 30, and I'll put 30 back inside here. Okay, so this will become 30. Alright, and if let's say my next input is again 30, so it will be 30 plus 30, which will be 60, and then 60 would be my new sum over here. Alright, so the sum is a variable that will have the initial value of 0, and every time I add in a new value, I will add on to the sum that has already been computed. Okay, then average would be just the total sum, okay, divided by n. Okay, so this is the idea. Okay, this is the idea that we have, and we're now going to implement that in the code. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable, okay, for the num. So this will be the input that the user provides, okay, and I'm going to compute the average, and since in most cases average would have a decimal value, I'm going to put float average, okay, and since sum is also going to be computed, alright, along the way, I'm going to declare sum, okay, as 0 as well. So that's the initial value, and since I'm going to have a loop, I'm going to have a loop counter as well. Alright, so these are the variables that I initially need. Okay, so let's go ahead. So what kind of loop should I use? Alright, should I use a for loop, while loop, or do while loop? Alright, so generally the rule of thumb is that if you know, okay, that you're going to run the loop for a certain number of iterations, then you can use a for loop. Alright, when you do not know how many times you're going to run the loop, then you can use a while loop or do while loop. Alright, so these examples, I will come to that in another video. For now, we will stick with the for loop, since we know that I'm going to run it for a certain number of times. Alright, so I can say for I equals to 0, I less than, for example, 3, I plus plus. So in this case, I will run the loop for I equals to 0, I equals to 1, I equals to 2. So total 3 times. Alright, and for each time, I'm going to ask the user enter a number. All right, and okay, so I will just put this as a so after CR I'll put a C in, and that number will go into num. All right, so as we saw just now, okay, from our design here, every time I enter a new number, that number must be added to sum. Okay, so I need to make sure sum equals to sum plus num. Okay, so whatever input that I enter, I will add on to sum. So if initially, since sum is 0, if the first number is 10, 10 plus 0 will become 10 into sum. Alright, and then I keep repeating this 3 times. Okay, now the computation of the sum will happen, or will keep updating each iteration of the loop, but average can only be done after I have obtain the total sum, which means after I have completed the loop. Alright, so average can only be computed after I exit the loop. So average equals to sum divided by 3. Okay, then I can do one more C out over here. Average equals to, okay, average. Alright, so let's just look at the code again. So this for loop is going to run for 3 iterations, 0, 1 and 2, I value 0, 1 and 2. For each iteration, I ask the user to enter a number. I take that number, put it into the variable num, and then I add on to the sum total. Alright, and this will repeat for 3 times, and when I am done, I can compute the average and then print it out. So let's run the code here and see what happens. Okay, so here the first thing that we do is we enter a number. We prompt the user to enter a number. So let's say I give 5, the first number, 6, second number, and 7 as third number. Then the average is 6, correct? 5 plus 6 plus 7, the average would be 6. Okay, now what are the things we can do to improve the user interface? All right, so as you can see that here we are saying enter a number, enter a number, enter a number. One thing that we can do is we can say enter number 1, enter number 2, enter number 3, and so on. Okay, so to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to update here. I'm going to say enter number, and I'm going to before I put this colon here, I'm going to print out the number that I want. So for the first iteration should be number 1, then number 2, and number 3. Alright, so this is where the correct use of I will come in. Alright, so since I, which is a loop counter, is already incrementing, alright, with each iteration of the loop, we can use I. But if I use I directly, okay, if I use I directly, okay, so let me just show you what happens. Okay, so I'm going to add the colon back again. Alright, so if I use I directly, alright, to print out as the loop counter, then it will start with number 0, right? Because the loop is starting from 0. Okay, so again I'm going to gain for number 3, 4, 5. Okay, now though the loop, like I said, starts from 0, because in many cases loops are used with arrays, which we will come to in another video. But from a user perspective, we usually start from 1. Alright, so what we can do is, instead of modifying the loop, I can just print out I plus 1. Okay, I can just print out I plus 1. Okay, and that will help to just put the updated value here, but we are not changing I over here. We are just printing out I plus 1. Okay, it is not I equals to I plus 1. We are not executing a statement like that where the I is updated. We are just taking the value of I, adding by 1, and then using it to be in the cout statement. Okay, so now if I run, we can see that I start with enter number 1. Alright, so it will be, for example, 7 and 8, 9. Alright, average is 8. Alright, now of course you can put in any number you like, and since we have declared the average as a float, okay, it will be able to print out the decimal values of the answer. Okay, so I hope this gives you a good example on how we can implement loops to calculate the sum of n numbers. In this case, n is three numbers. Alright, so thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.